our sacred airwaves.
Welcome to the weekday show. Let's rock and roll. Rock and roll. Come on, everybody. Let's lose control. Brad John never wants to follow. Yeah, ready for the ride. It's the BJ Show. BJ Show.
John, do you have your talking points ready for today? Remember, we're going to start doing this.
I got them straight from Nancy Pelosi and KJP.
No, we have to have our own talking points. We have to come up with our own talking.
I thought we were supposed to parrot them, Brad.
No. We're supposed to start.
We are NPR, right? We are. I mean, now you and I have talked about this. We are a nonprofit radio station, so we are kind of like NPR, right, Brad?
Well, nonprofit, not by choice, but yes. See, that's the thing that cracks me up about that thing. Don't get me going on that. Not for profit. And essentially, in a corporate world, like in the Monsanto world, any money that was left over after all expenses were paid, and you take the top line, you subtract the middle line, you get the bottom line. That's profit, okay? In a not-for-profit, that's not profit. That's just excess. Okay, don't have to pay taxes on it. You can keep it. You can do whatever you want with it. It's just sort of like free money. That's what I don't quite understand. No,
well, I don't mean to get started this early, Brad, but when today we're going to talk in the top 3 about both nonprofits and another one of your favorite entities that doesn't have to pay any taxes, Brad.
Who would that be, or do I have to wait for?
I can't tell you. You got to listen to all 3, Brad. You have to listen to A Block on YouTube.
Can you give me a hint? Is it number 1, number 2, and number 3?
Number 3 and number 1. Number 2 is kind of like a little local focus thing that you like.
But you don't do local focus, remember?
I don't do local focus. It has a statewide implication, though, Brad. And before we get started, speaking of statewide implications, folks will probably tomorrow want to check out. There is a statewide Missouri election preview, KMOS, in the western part of the state. It's sponsored by This Week in Missouri Politics. Remember Jo Mannies from the Post-Dispatch, Brad?
Unfortunately, yes. I've had some dealings with her, but that's a whole other story.
Oh, okay. Maybe we'll get into that. Joe will be there. Mike Mahoney from from KMBC in Kansas City, and our friend Stephanie Bell will do an election preview with Scott Fawn. It's going to be live tonight, but also we'll be able to check it on YouTube tomorrow. And it's a good time to mention too, Brad, that on election night I will be in Jefferson City with Scott Fawn, the first ever This Week in Missouri Politics election night special. It is the only Missouri-focused election night show you'll be able to watch on election night, Brad. That's Tuesday, August 6th. We'll begin at 8 p.m. in Jefferson City. Scott and I will be live. We'll have comments, and we'll have dial-ins, video dial-ins from winning candidates, campaign managers, and such. 8 p.m. on election night in Jefferson City.
Is this streaming only, or is it going to be on one of the broadcast stations?
It's streaming only, yeah.
Interesting. Is this the first time he's ever done this?
That's right, yeah. It's the first time.
He was on with Marc Cox. Did we talk about that? He was on with Marc Cox. Was that Monday?
I think he was on with Reardon.
That's right. He's on with Reardon. Was that Monday? We didn't talk about that,
2 days ago.
Yeah. It was Monday, right? And I thought he wimped out on a couple things. I mean, he's sort of a firebrand, and I was expecting sort of that firebrand nature, but he was sort of like, like when he. Well, we'll talk about it later if you want. That's if you want to. If not, we'll just. John Combest, COMBEST. Every single day he puts together a list of all the important stuff going on in the state of Missouri. Puts it up on his website, johncombest.com. And usually 20, 30, sometimes even 40 different things. But we distill it down to the top 3. We bring in this guy.
I'm Casey Kasem.
And he does.
Now on with the countdown.
And we start with.
In third place.
Brad, can I ask you a personal question?
Yeah, you do all the time, so go ahead.
Are you obsessed with Chappell Roan?
No, but it's funny you should bring that up because the fact that I was listening to American Top 40 with Ryan Seacrest on Sunday, and he was talking about her. But I once again, I take her or leave her. She's a talented woman, but not my kind of music, tell you the truth.
Well, that's surprising to me, Brad, because the headline from NPR today, brought to us by St. Louis Public Radio, is why everyone is obsessed with Missouri pop star Chappell Roan this summer. So I guess that's technically incorrect because, Brad, you don't seem to be obsessed with her. But she's gotten a lot of fame. You know, she was an opening act for Taylor Swift on the Eras tour. I'm sorry, for Olivia Rodrigo on Olivia Rodrigo's Guts tour when she came to St. Louis. And the media loves the fact, Brad, that she came from conservative, close-minded, rural Missouri, and yet she sings about drag queens. She sings about getting drunk with the chick and making out with her. And on her stage show, she dresses up as the Statue of Liberty and emerges from a bong shaped like an apple. You know, all these really open-minded things. And it's amazing that somebody that's so brave and that has so much courage could come from a dumpy, backwards place like Missouri, Brad. So if you want to read the story about how someone enlightened managed to emerge from the disgusting morass of our home state here in Missouri, check out NPR today, Brad. This is brought to us by a content creator named Hazel Sills. And before that, Brad, Hazel was a culture reporter at Jezebel. So that tells you something.
But you know what? I'm sort of surprised that NPR would do some kind of a story like this. I mean, this is normally they're like meat and potatoes, you know, straight ahead politics kind of stuff. You know, I mean,
that's true. I mean, she doesn't claim to be a BIPOC, so it's strange that you would have a white bread white woman being featured. But thankfully, she supports drag and making out with chicks while you're drunk.
Role models, right? Okay.
Hey, you know, Brad, maybe you should stop being from Missouri and start being a little open-minded. Maybe you should spend more time on the Olivia Rodrigo tour.
You know what? I spent a lot of time in Sauget, and it impacted me quite a bit, you know? I mean, you know, okay, number 2.
Up a notch to number 2.
A story about a state politician that has local implications. Now, Brad, you brought up a great point just minutes ago. I don't ever link to stories that are just about local politics on my website, even if it's, you know, St. Louis City schools or the St. Louis City shooting or things of that nature, particularly county politics, because frankly, I don't pay much attention and I don't care. However, in this case, a state senator named Brian Williams is making some waves, Brad, because he's got a PAC called STLCO, so St. Louis Co. He's got a St. Louis Co PAC, and he's been raising a bunch of money for it. And he's given $57,000 over 3 weeks in July to boost the campaign of a woman running for St. Louis County Council. Now you say, John, why would a guy who's a state senator care about some dinky county council race? Well, it wouldn't make sense unless you thought, hey, maybe Senator Brian Williams will be challenging Sam Page and the Democratic primary for St. Louis County Executive in 2 years. Yes, Brad, the campaigning for 2026 has already begun. So it appears as though Brian Williams is gearing up for a St. Louis County Executive bid, and he's supporting, by the way, we should point out too, another state tie-in here, is that Representative Gretchen Bangert is an incumbent. I guess I should say she's leaving the state legislature, which is why she's running for county council. And she was at the center of a controversy roughly a month ago, maybe a little more, in which she said that, well, she didn't just say, she has an audio recording of it, in which County Executive Sam Page essentially offered her, let her know that there might be a job available for her in St. Louis County government if she decided to not run in the primary. So that's the story, Brad. Brian Williams giving money to a county council candidate, probably gearing up for a bid for St. Louis County Executive.
Well, you talk about probably gearing up. Already in St. Charles County, you've got Mike Elam, and I believe, if I'm not mistaken, the mayor of Wentzville as well is gearing up for the 2026 election for the St. Charles County Executive race. I mean, Mike Elam's just really out about it. He's just out and saying, as a matter of fact, he started this last year. I ran into him, I think back in November, December of last year. He told me the whole story. How, you know, I mean, that was 2023. He's gearing up for election in 2026. You know, nothing like being prepared, right?
Well, and he wasn't going to come out, Brad, but he listened to a lot of Chappell Roan songs, and all she talks about is why people should come out.
Okay. And last but
then
not
least. Then he put on a dress and went on 97.1, and Andrew Bailey said, "You're sitting in my seat. I have the Tuesday 4 p.m. slot.
No, he has the Tuesday, Wednesday, Friday, Saturday at 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7 o'clock slot. That's his slot. Okay,
That's exactly right. How dare you question the Montgomery County war hero, Brad? It's disgusting.
Well, no, I'm just saying, do some.
Who are you, Will Sharf?
Do some legal stuff. Stop talking on the radio. You know, I mean, you're the Attorney General. You shouldn't be talking to low-life radio people. That's all I can say.
Hey, listen, I got something he should investigate, Brad. And that leads us to
The number one.
some great news for you, Brad, and the God Squad. Over in the western part of the state, there is a state Senate primary. A gentleman named Aaron McMullen is running. A guy named David Martin is running. And a pastor, Brad. One of your fellow pastors, a guy named Joe Nicola, is running for state Senate. But something strange has been going on lately, Brad. It appears as though he's been giving money from his church to his state Senate campaign. Now, Brad, why do you think that would be questionable?
I don't know. That's interesting. Is that legal?
No,
It's not.
apparently. And so now let me take Joe Nicola's point of view here. Let me attempt to play devil's advocate. Joe says that his church, by the way, is not technically a church, as some might expect it to be. And he quotes some biblical references there. But here's the catch, Brad. His church is a church in the eyes of the state of Missouri. It's registered as a nonprofit. But he is not, in the eyes of the IRS, a nonprofit. So therefore, according to him, because he is not, according to the IRS, the federal tax law, he is not a church, he can do with his church, which is, by the way, called New Covenant Ministries. He says he can pretty much do whatever he wants with the money. And that means that the church, if it so chooses, can give money to his campaign. And here's his quote, to be fair. I teach my congregation to be an active part of society, and politics is a part of that. There's no such thing as separation of church and state. That's a misnomer. The 501c3 is just government regulations. So, Brad, he's a church in the eyes of the state of Missouri and the Missouri Department of Revenue, but not in the eyes of the IRS. So who is to say that he can't, shepherd, so to speak, some cash from the church's coffers into his campaign for state senate?
Well, there's something interesting about that is that if you register in the state of Missouri as a not-for-profit, and in the state of Missouri, I'm almost positive of this, you can't be an LLC. You have to actually be a corporation.
Correct.
So you have to be a corporation. Okay. So if he's registered in the state of Missouri as a not-for-profit, what's he registered with the federal government? Is he registered as a for-profit then, I guess? Is that what he's doing? Because
I'm not sure. I'm not sure.
Well,
he said he just says that he's not held to the IRS requirements
well, then
for 501c3, and then he didn't answer any other questions, I don't think, about the tax status. Essentially, the question that you just asked.
Well, then he must be
I
registered.
don't think he believed that.
Yeah, he must be registered just as a regular for-profit corporation with the IRS. I mean, in other words, it's just like if you go and incorporate or you file an LLC in the state of Missouri, then when you file, for your FEIN number from the feds, unless you specify, and you got to jump through some hoops to get a 501c3 or a C4 or all the other derivations of that, he's just a for-profit corporation then,
And you know what, Brad? I should give him credit too, because he did answer that question. He said that the church has never filed to be exempt from federal taxes with the IRS. So yes, that would mean that he pays taxes. Yeah.
Right. Well, you know what? Good for him. Now, can I tell you something which bothered me? And you know what? Marc Cox is not like a guy I go to dinner with all the time or stuff like that.
Right.
I've met him a couple times. Matter of fact, it's interesting. I met him at the now infamous Rex Sinkfield meeting in 2016 in Rex Sinkfield's house. I don't know if I told you this bizarre story where when I used to be in the good graces of Tim Jones used to invite me to things, and he invited me to a fundraiser at Rex Sinkfield's house. If you don't know who Rex Sinkfield is, he's this billionaire dude who has put probably millions and millions and millions of dollars into campaigns and things. He ran a thing called Pelopidas, which he got mad about, and one day literally closed it and fired everybody at noon, which I'm not kidding when I say that. But anyway, I ended up at this fundraiser, and I met Marc there, and I've met him before. And the fundraiser was interesting because the fundraiser was for a governor from another state who Rex Sinquefield really liked, and he brought him here into St. Louis and raised money for this campaign in Indiana, and he made a little speech. He walked up with 2 or 3 steps on Rex Sinquefield's staircase in his fancy schmancy Central West End house, made a couple of, made some remarks, walked down the steps, walked right over to me like he was eyeing me up, came over and shook my hand. And I said to him, you and I have something in common. And he said, what's that? I go, I'm in the radio business. And he said, I used to. Guess who this was?
No idea.
Mike Pence. This was.
No way, really?
Yes, this was June of 2016, and I get invited to Rex Sinquefield's house through Tim Jones as a fundraiser for Mike Pence running for re-election for the Indiana governorship. And this was before, and he introduces me to his wife. Here's my wife.
Holy cow.
Yeah, it was sort of weird, and it's funny because of the fact that several people that I was at that meeting with, and matter of fact, the person I went with, I was like texting them when Trump announces that's his vice presidential pick. I'm going like, remember, we met this guy, And so anyway,
That's amazing.
Let me go back to the Marc Cox thing. Okay. Marc Cox, I listen to him from time to time, and once again, I'm a button pusher. I listen to all sorts of different stations.
Right,
he has his slate. He's doing it again. This is Marc Cox's preferred candidates, and he was just eviscerating one of the constitutional amendments. I don't know if it's number 1 or number 4. You probably know this, where essentially it would make child care centers be tax exempt as far as their real estate is concerned.
Yeah, that's Amendment 1.
That's Amendment 1. Okay. He's eviscerating that. And I texted him. I said, Mark, he's saying this is terrible because everybody's just going to, said they've got a child care in their home and they're going to declare their houses. That way they won't pay personal property tax. They won't pay real estate taxes. I'm going like, isn't that the way the churches are now? And my complaint is, once again, you go by a church, guess what they pay? Or a not-for-profit. I mean, like, perfect example. Humane Society. I go by it all the time. Corner of Schutz and Page. Probably, $10-20 million building. You know the taxes they pay to the county? They pay 0.
0.0.
Yeah, 0.0. I think that's wrong. I really do. And
let me guess. Marc Cox did not have anything to say back.
He didn't respond.
That's what I'm
texting. Yeah, he didn't respond. Because once again, you can't say things like that. And look, I'm not, upfront. I've made this vow that you and I have talked about this, and if you listen to other radio stations, they will never talk about their competition. We talk about our competition all the time. We talk about Tracy and Rick. We talk about Tim Jones and those kind of people. I just mentioned Tim Jones. And I talk.
Why wouldn't? But even if he doesn't want to promote you on the air, and I remember he said that Mark McCluskey was a quote competitive voice unquote, which I think is a hilarious quote there. Why wouldn't he text you back?
I don't mean
he doesn't have to read it on the air.
Well, I think I'm now, because I don't agree with him, I'm scum of the earth.
non grata.
Well, see, the interesting thing.
Speaking of nonprofits, serious question. We talked a little bit yesterday off the air about like a vision for what the stations could become. Have you thought of turning your stations officially into nonprofits and the advantages that could be there? Well, that would be one way to have a clear path for the stations, right? Well,
no, but the problem on that is that you run into all sorts of different. It brings up a minefield because of the fact that anytime you remember the whole crazy thing. Who was the lady for the IRS? Remember what was he going back?
Oh yeah, the woman that was the West County Ministry, Joyce Meyer.
Well, but the thing that happened, where all these, I think this was back in 2010 when you had all the patriot organizations and the Tea Party people.
The Tea Party,
and
yeah.
And they were all forming these not-for-profit organizations, and they were not getting approved by the IRS. And it turned out that there were people in the IRS going like, okay, these are conservative Republicans. We're not approving that. You got to jump through a bunch of hoops to be a not-for-profit. And typically, if you're you're doing things that can be construed. And I'm no tax expert. If attorneys listening, you can call me right now and contradict everything I say. 314-280-8880. If you're like running a strip club and you're running it as a not-for-profit, you might get in a little bit of trouble. Get what I'm saying? I mean, because people are going to say, no, hold on a minute. It's a strip club.
Well, it's an education nonprofit because they're working their way through school.
Right. No,
they're totally going to get their nursing degree.
No, it's not. It's not about the people working there. It's about what they're doing. They're teaching anatomy.
You mean that's just a line?
Well,
that's not true.
They're teaching anatomy. That's what they're doing. You could say.
I bet they are, Brad.
Right. So anyway, okay, we need to move on. We need to take a break.
Thanks for checking out the Brad and John Show podcast. This segment of the show is brought to you by John Combest's book, Stalking, Harassment, Internet Trolling, A Guide to Recovering and Rebuilding After Online Attacks. It's a great reference if you've ever been the unfortunate target of a social media attack. It's available on Amazon. Just search John Combest. That's Combest, John Combest, and the book will show up in your search results. Now it's time for another segment of the Brad and John Show. Can you handle it?